So I would imagine it is every vegetable gardener's dream to be able to feed your family throughout the year from your vegetable garden. So if you've got limited space, then that makes it a little bit difficult. I've almost thought I'd have to make my entire back garden a big vegetable garden so that I'll be able to supply food to my family. But of late I found some really cool tips which I want to share with you. Yeah, just to make the most of every square meter that you have available to plant something in which is edible. So let me get behind the camera and then I'll show you some cool tips which I've recently learned or that I have been using over the past few years. Let's start with the lettuce. So you want to be harvesting from the outer leaves. You can get 10 weeks of harvest from these plants if you're harvesting from the outer leaves. And then you leave those few so that the plant can still photosynthesize. So what I do is it's sort of a down and twist motion. See, so you want to have a nice clean stem. These ones I didn't do so well. Let's just clean it up. And then you can remove all the diseased or ugly leaves as well at the same time. And you can see if there's any pests. So this will increase your lettuce yield. Like I said, in 10 weeks you'll be able to harvest it. Leave that one. Tortoise got hold of it. It snuck in there. But there you go, you get the idea, right? Now with broccoli, you just cut off the head. This is the smaller of my broccoli. So it's really not going to be an impressive harvest, but I'm glad it did something at least. So you cut off just its head and you leave the others. That's how I understand it. Anyways, so then you will get these little bits of florets and they'll keep producing. And you have your broccoli head, and if you then it extends the life of the plant and of your harvest. So it's supposed to apply for your cabbage as well. See, this one is starting to form a little head there. Hopefully it's going to be a big head. And apparently this I haven't tried. Well, not if I did it with the broccoli either. That's why I was sort of kind of hesitant. But this is what I've heard and I've seen online, is when you cut out the head, you leave it. And then you'll get little sort of tennis ball sized ones, which will appear as well. And that too will then extend the life of your harvest really, and allowing you to get more per square meter. These tips I've just recently learned and I'm thinking this is fantastic. I mean, you know, you've put in so much, it's been in the ground for so long, and then just to harvest it one time, there you go, that's the end of you. I suppose it does open up for you to have a succession crop going in, but yeah, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a go when this one's ready, and then we'll see if it does do that, but I think it will. Now I've mentioned this a number of times about multi-sown crops. For example, you can do it with radish, and you can do it with onions and beetroot and turnips. So if you look at this pot, you can see here there's 3 in this pot. So this is the biggest one. When I feel it's ready, then I will harvest this one first, which then gives space for these ones to grow to a bigger size. You're not going to get these massive onions, but that's fine because I don't like massive onions. I'm happy with, I suppose you would get about a tennis ball size onion, and that's what I would buy in the shop anyways. So I would that's the plan with multi-sowing. I mean, in one little container I'm going to get 3 onions. That's really good value for space, I would say. And then intercropping. So instead of just having the millies in here, you have millies and Swiss chard, because the millies are going to give shade for the Swiss chard because they don't really like it to be very hot, and you're going to get 2 crops out of this. Is probably, this bed is maybe 1 meter by 1.5 meters. So another good tip, getting the most out of what you've got. Now with carrots, I learned this from Charles Darwin. So normally, traditionally, what you would do is you would start to thin out your carrots when they're little, about that size, right? But instead of doing that, to get more of your harvest, you're going to look, okay, these ones are just a bit too small. I'll leave them for a bit till they get a little bit bigger. Although, hang on, let me just see here. How big is this? No, that's definitely too small. We'll leave those then. So instead of doing the traditional spacing, then you will look to see which one is the biggest. Here we go. And then, yeah, you can see that. And then you harvest that. So now this is now not the biggest carrot, but it provides now more space for these ones to grow up. See, now they're nicely spaced. Oh, there's a silly little thing there. Anyways, and now they're nicely spaced so that they can get a little bit bigger. But if I had thinned them when they were this big, where's it gone now? There it is. When they were this big, I'm not going to get anything. Now at least I'm getting, I mean, this isn't bad. It's probably 10-12 centimeter carrot. I'm happy with that. I'll have it. Okay, so here, here's my multi-sown beetroot. I don't think, there won't be anything yet to see, I don't think.
Not for you, Vicky. Not for your tiny bit.
But I've got 3 or 4, yeah, I mean these were only planted at the end of July. So I've got 3 or 4 per planting station. And that means it's going to give me 3 or 4 beetroot per planting station. And I mean, this is not really very big. This is probably like 0.5 meter by 1 meter space. And I worked it out. I'm going to get, let's say there was 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. 18 times 3. Well, that's a lot. Okay, that's a lot. You go work it out. You don't do maths on the run. Anyway, that's going to give me a lot of beetroot. Same principle with the onions. You're going to harvest the biggest one first, and then it allows more space for the smaller ones to grow. And just making the best use of the space that you have. So I've planted the carrots, another row of carrots here, in between the kale. So the kale are still coming along, and by the looks of it, I think they won't really actually take up that much space. So the carrots will be able to come to maturity in while the kale is still here. And then one of the kale died, so I just stuck in some lettuce, and now I'll have another 5 lettuce plants there. Another tip is to do some vertical gardening. So vertical gardening can be for anything that vines. I suppose you can also, I mean, I've seen guys using pallets, and then they use landscaping fabric and they line the inside of the pallet with that, and then in the gaps they will plant lettuce or even tomatoes. I was considering moving my strawberries into something like that, and then you lean it up against the wall. What I've done here is, this is butternut. So the butternut, I'm going to have it coming through, I'll pull it through the gap, and then it will trellis up all the way up the wall and a little bit further. And then over here I have these are Spanish melons, and I'll do the same with them as well. So instead of them filling up a whole bed on the ground, they're going to go up the wall. And then a Spanish melon can get quite heavy, but it will be able to support itself. I've seen in Babylonstoren, they do that. They are able to have them growing over this massive arch, and you just see these huge boerpampoen and stuff hanging. They're just dangling there. So that's going to be fantastic. That's going to save space. I'm going to be able to plant, and these gaps here in front of it, I'll plant something else there. So as with the lettuce, you can also just harvest the outer leaves of the coriander, which prevents it from going to seed and extends the harvest of your coriander crop. You can also make use of containers. I've got these flower boxes which I've made, which are around the vegetable garden. This is lettuce, and here are onion, and I've even still got the cabbage. Cabbages in here, they don't feature so well because the chickens get hold of the outer leaves, although it's not too bad. It's already starting to form a little head there, so we'll get something, you know. Even if I get baby cabbage from that, I'm happy with it. But yeah, I've got in some baby spinach. Yeah, that's just one of the other ways of extending your vegetable garden, or even planting underneath your fruit trees. If you have space, yeah, you just stick it in underneath there. There's some more cabbage, and here are tomatoes underneath the peach tree. And then my last tip will be succession planting. As soon as your bed empties, like I had peas in here, then you stick in the next thing. You have all your stuff lined up. You go to the nursery, you buy seed trays if you like, seedlings. I usually am continuously planting seeds, especially at this time of the year, and check what the time of the year is for planting things. But yeah, from spring onwards you can pretty much plant most things. So I stuck in Swiss chard and some salad bowl lettuce, and then over here are some more onions, multi-sown. So you just want to keep your veggie garden full. You just want to keep producing, keep planting. That's what you want to do. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, then please do share it with your friends, and like and subscribe.